Stop everything you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you could flip everything we thought we knew about the Browns' quarterback room on its head. A former NFL champion just dropped a bombshell prediction that has me questioning whether we're all sleeping on what might be the most explosive storyline of our entire season. While everyone's been focused on whether Joe Flacco can still sling it at 39, or if Dorian Thompson-Robinson is ready to take the next step, there's a name that's been flying under the radar. And according to one NFL insider, that name might be taking snaps by week 8. We're talking about Shedeur Sanders, and if this prediction comes true, it could completely reshape not just our season, but the entire trajectory of this franchise. Here's what's on my attention, and why every Browns fan needs to be paying closer attention to what's happening behind the scenes. Right now, everyone assumes Flacco is our guy for 2024, with Thompson-Robinson as the heir apparent waiting in the wings. It's a safe, predictable narrative that makes perfect sense on paper. Veteran leadership guiding a young, developing talent. We've seen this movie before. But football isn't played on paper, and sometimes the most interesting stories develop in places we're not even looking. Former NFL cornerback and champion St. Samuel just went on record with a prediction that caught everyone off guard. He's calling his shot right now. Shedeur Sanders could be starting games for the Browns by week 8 to week 10 of this season. Not 2025, not after a year of development, this season. And before you dismiss this as hot take nonsense, let me explain why this might not be as crazy as it sounds. First, let's talk about what we're actually dealing with at the quarterback position. Joe Flacco is 39 years old. Now, I love what Joe brought to this team last year when he stepped in, and his veteran presence is invaluable, but father time is undefeated in the NFL. At 39, every hit matters more, every game takes a bigger toll, and the margin for error gets smaller by the week. Then there's Thompson-Robinson, who everyone's penciling in as our future. He's got athleticism, he's got arm talent, and he's been working his tail off to earn that starting role. But here's where things get complicated, and this is something St. Samuel specifically called out. There are legitimate questions about DTR's physical profile and durability. Size matters in this league, especially when you're taking hits from 300-pound defensive linemen who run 4.5 40s. Now enter Shedeur Sanders. 5th-round pick, tons of talent, and according to Samuel, a guy the Browns might see as having a higher ceiling than anyone wants to admit right now. Sanders has the arm talent, the athleticism, and the kind of physical tools that translate well to the NFL level. But more importantly, he might have something that's even rarer, the right combination of talent and timing. Think about this for a second. Thompson-Robinson barely beat out Sanders for the backup role in training camp. We're not talking about a massive talent gap here. We're talking about two young quarterbacks who are probably closer in ability than the depth chart suggests. And if you're the Browns front office and you're looking at the long-term picture, which player gives you the better chance to compete not just this year, but for the next 5 to 10 years? Here's where Samuel's prediction starts to make a lot more sense. If the Browns hit any kind of rough patch early in the season, if Flacco struggles or gets banged up, if Thompson-Robinson shows he's not quite ready for prime time, suddenly you're looking at a scenario where giving Sanders a shot becomes not just possible, but necessary. And let's be honest about something else. This organization has been searching for their franchise quarterback for decades. We've tried veterans, we've drafted projects, we've traded for established starters, and we're still having this conversation. At some point, you have to trust your evaluation of talent and take a swing on a player you believe in, even if the timing isn't perfect. The fascinating part about Sanders is that he brings a different element to the position than what we currently have. Flacco is all about veteran savvy and pocket presence. Thompson-Robinson is athletic and mobile, but still learning the nuances of reading NFL defenses. Sanders combines athleticism with a strong arm and the kind of confidence that you can't teach. But here's what really has me intrigued about this whole situation. The Browns aren't just thinking about 2024, they're thinking about building something sustainable. This defense is good enough to compete right now. The offensive line has potential. The skill position players are talented. What they need is a quarterback who can grow with this core and potentially take them to the next level. If Sanders gets thrown into action earlier than expected and shows he belongs, it could accelerate this entire rebuild timeline. Instead of hoping Thompson-Robinson develops into a starter over the next 2 years, you might have your answer at quarterback much sooner than anyone anticipated. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. He's a rookie 5th-round pick. How good could he really be? But remember, the NFL is full of stories about quarterbacks who were overlooked, undervalued, or thrust into action earlier than expected and exceeded all expectations. Tom Brady was a sixth-round pick. Russell Wilson was a third-rounder who wasn't supposed to start as a rookie. Sometimes talent finds a way to rise to the surface regardless of draft position. The other factor that could accelerate Sanders' timeline is simple. Injuries happen in the NFL. Quarterback is the most important and most vulnerable position on the field. One awkward hit, one unlucky play, and suddenly your depth chart looks completely different. The Browns learned this lesson the hard way in recent years, and they know better than anyone how quickly everything can change at the position. What makes this prediction even more interesting is the source. St. Samuel isn't just throwing darts at a board, he's a former player who understands how these decisions get made at the organizational level. When he says the Browns might be more willing to give Sanders a shot than people realize, that's based on understanding how teams actually evaluate and develop young quarterbacks. If you're getting value out of this breakdown and want to stay ahead of every twist in this quarterback battle, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to Browns Breakout. We're going to be tracking this story all season long because if Samuel's prediction comes true, you're going to want to say you saw it coming. The timing element here is crucial. Week 8 to Week 10 puts us right in the heart of the season, when teams know whether they're contending or rebuilding. If the Browns are sitting at 6-2 and everything's clicking with Flacco, you probably don't make a change. But if they're 3-5 and struggling to score points, suddenly giving your talented rookie a chance to spark the offense doesn't seem so crazy. There's also the development factor to consider. Sometimes the best way for a young quarterback to learn is by playing actual games against actual defenses. All the practice reps and preseason snaps in the world can't replicate the pressure and complexity of regular season football. If the Browns believe Sanders has the mental makeup to handle that pressure, getting him experience this season could pay dividends down the road. What's really fascinating is how this could impact the entire AFC North dynamic. The division is loaded with established quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, and whatever the Steelers end up doing at the position. If Cleveland suddenly has a young, talented quarterback who's ahead of his development timeline, that changes everything about how this division shapes up over the next few years. The Browns have been building this roster methodically, adding pieces on both sides of the ball, creating a foundation that should be able to support a young quarterback if needed. The defense can keep games close, the running game can take pressure off the passing attack, and the coaching staff has experience developing young players. All the infrastructure is in place for a scenario where Sanders could step in and succeed. But let's also be realistic about what this would mean. Throwing a rookie quarterback into action, especially one who was a fifth-round pick, is always a risk. There would be growing pains, there would be mistakes, and there would be games where inexperience shows up at the worst possible moments. The question is whether the Browns are willing to accept those risks in exchange for the potential upside. What I keep coming back to is the confidence level in this prediction. Samuel didn't just suggest Sanders might get a chance. He specifically called out weeks 8 through 10 as when it could happen. That kind of specificity suggests he's heard something, or he's seeing something in how the organization views these players that the rest of us are missing. The other thing that makes this timeline interesting is that it gives Sanders enough time to continue developing while still getting meaningful experience this season. Week 8 isn't too early where you're throwing him to the wolves, but it's not so late that the season is already lost. It's right in that sweet spot where a young player could make a real impact. Looking at the bigger picture, this quarterback situation might be the most important storyline of our entire season. Not just because of who's starting games, but because of what it means for the long-term direction of this franchise. The decisions made at this position over the next few months could determine whether we're competing for championships in 3 years or still searching for answers. The beauty of this whole situation is that no matter what happens, the Browns are in a better position at quarterback than they've been in years. They have veteran leadership, they have developing young talent, and they might have a diamond in the rough who's ready to contribute sooner than anyone expected. Whether St. Samuel's prediction comes true or not, one thing is certain: this quarterback room is going to be worth watching all season long. The competition, the development, and the potential for someone to step up and seize the moment makes this one of the most compelling storylines in all of football right now. So keep your eyes on Shedeur Sanders, because if this prediction hits, you're going to witness the emergence of potentially the most important player in Browns history. And trust me, that's not hyperbole. That's just the reality of what finding your franchise quarterback means in today's NFL.